Okay, let's start. So for tonight's stream, a little recap of last week, where we finally got the target of this breaker, and it already pumped 5.5% from it. Very nice. So target reached, out of trades. Didn't take the long here because I don't want to trade this anymore. But it hit the 1-to-1 from this impulse up to the low onto this 1 hour order block. So yeah, it hit to the dollar pretty much, rejected 2.5%, and is back doing nothing. So nothing really has changed. The most obvious things I'm looking at on Bitcoin is these highs, which is buy side liquidity, and then this local taken by this one, not by much, a small margin. Then this local taken on CPI release, if I remember correctly. So now we have another swing low liquidation pivot. And that's pretty much all the interesting thing to me right now in Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin is just accumulating for a bigger move. What I would really like is, I've outlined this already last week, is have this initial drop, then pump, and then go for the real move, which is either going higher or going way lower. Since I've just been looking at this range, and this range is taking already 132 days, very long time, basically since summer. So I'm expecting a move soon, since it hasn't been very volatile, except for the CPI day and some BART, but overall not really moving. So I would really like this, or the other way around, and it's just go high then low. I don't really have preference at the moment. I just want to see what happens next when it's there. I was also looking at the same principle, but on a higher time frame, on a daily. So I would say, why not just do the same thing on a daily chart? That takes a bit longer for a nice accumulation here at the lows. Filling up some gaps, taking some sell-side liquidity, taking out this equal low, since this is an equal low, and then go for a run up to 30K. Instead of going just straight down. And then a time pivot for the new year, since that's almost always a seasonal shift in price action. Saw that last year, so perhaps also this year. And it's pretty much what I'm looking at on Bitcoin at the moment. Since, let's see, I was looking at the delta from this range, and it's still a lot of green. So a lot of underwater shorts or underwater longs are probably still open from here. And I have a guess that they want to break even, go out, or close just below their entry for a small loss instead of a big loss. And they are pretty strong hands, to be fair, since they have been holding this holding these longs all this time. So what we would like to see is a flush taking out the bulls that are protecting and keeping this up, and then go for a run higher, get them out of the market, and then let's see what happens next. And we might see a form of a local low if you go here. So this is just ranging. And if we then go lower and we go higher and we close above these highs, basically liquidity grab, market structure shift, look for retrace, look for more upside. But for now, nothing really interesting on Bitcoin. So I'm going to keep it short on Bitcoin. Then if we go to DXY, DXY was interesting past week. It took out this high by almost nothing, like 0.002 points, which is basically nothing, but it gave a reaction of 2%, so almost 2.5 points lower. Quite a reaction considering lower high. Daily chart, by the way, not really clear what it wants to do. We still have this lower gap on DXY, and we have a swing low just above it, so that might act as a magnet to reprice lower first, then go higher. And in terms of Elliott waves, to see it as a pattern, you can see this as a ABC type of move, just a 3-wave move, and then expect a little bit higher unless it takes out these lows. But for now, DXY on the higher time frame still bullish, nothing changed. So I'm looking forward on what DXY is going to do, since the original plan I had and I shared was going long from this gap on the OTE. And to be fair, nothing really has changed except that this high got taken and it got smacked down and we took the lows. But for now, still nothing. Still nothing changed. We just took the lows again, filled this gap basically almost. Now we have a little lower gap, but my focus was on this gap, since this is your first unfilled gap of this liquidity void, and it's in discount since it's below the equilibrium. So we'll have a close look at DXY for this week. As we may already know, and I've outlined it as well for this week on the calendar, we have advanced GDP quarterly numbers. So I'm expecting a lot of volatility on Thursday. Today we had a little bit flash services PMI on the US dollar, the British pound, and something on euro, but not really something I would like to see. And it's also Monday, so we have a Monday range, and we can go back to normal price action starting from tomorrow, since tomorrow we have also an FOMC member speaking. Usually not really stimulating volatility, but if it's just the member speaking, if it's the minutes or member speaking, it's not, generally speaking, not really volatile, but who knows. But we do have CB consumer confidence, and that's a financial confidence is leading indicator of consumer spending, which accounts for the majority of overall economic activity. So this is a real important thing for me on the calendar for this week. I'm really interested to see if the confidence is going to be increased or decreased, since they are forecasting lower than previous. So naturally, a little bit more of a bearish view on the confidence of the consumer, but we might see some surprises. And for Wednesday, excuse me, Wednesday, not really interesting for me. My main focus will be on Thursday again. And then see on Friday the PCE index, price index, monthly numbers. And we also have a Bank of Japan outlook report for the Japanese yen. And whenever the Japanese yen is moving, usually the dollar is moving, and it also affects traditional markets for some reason. So Thursday, Friday, my main focus for this week. Tuesday, we have to see. Maybe we get a Tuesday low or a Tuesday high of the week. I'm leaning towards high of the week, since we already moved quite up a lot on the ES, for example. So yeah, on DXY, I'm monitoring what it's going to do. If we pull a OTE fib from this low to this high, then we still have a little bit of room left, but not really significant for me, since we also have this lower gap still, and then we have this up candle gap filled with buy side liquidity, so it has to rebalance with sell side. And we do have some equal lows over here in the span of 5 days. But yeah, we have to see what DXY is going to do. I was really surprised by this reaction, since it basically just took out this high, but it gave this reaction on a real energetic move, and it broke below this 4-hour block, created a fair value gap, but we got a swing high inside this fair value gap. So I'm expecting continuation until proven otherwise. And if we go to the 1 hour, it's a little bit more clear. We got a local low taken out, ran a bit higher. We did close above these highs, so you could say market structure break. But if we look back, we see we got the liquidity grab, or liquidity run up here. Then we got a real displacement candle lower, broke this low. So this is your initial market structure break. And this is just a retrace inside a imbalance. And price retraced, or dollar retraced around the equilibrium, and it did not close above the equilibrium of this 1 hour fair value gap. So I'm expecting lower to be seen and go after this block, this gap, these lows, this low, since this low, yeah, filled this, still have these. So I'm expecting a little bit lower on DXY now too. It would have changed for my, or Yeah, it would have changed for me if it ran up much deeper above this high and closed above it, but it didn't. It just immediately went down. So I've changed my bias locally on DXY, not on a hard time frame, but more locally on the 1 hour or the 50 minutes, looking for a bit lower. And then let's go over the ES. So the ES, what an amazing last 2 days from the past week. We got our we had our equal lows. So little recap. We had our equal lows. We had that high. That high got taken out. We had our purge. We ran lower. We went into this 15-minute time frame liquidity void, or on the 4 hour this gap that I was pointing towards. Then we got the pump up. Very nice price action. We got our final target in the end. And now it's pretty much attempting to go to these highs. It's so close. I would have liked for the AM session to run a little bit deeper, or lunch to go a little bit deeper so we can go to this block. But the AM session reversed it again, and lunch didn't do anything since it's Monday. And by the looks of it, the PM session of today is not going down as well. So I'm expecting these highs to be taken right now. And to make it very concise, I'm just looking for these highs to be taken and go inside this gap. If we pull an equilibrium of this gap, and we still have this part unfilled. So I think it will go into this gap eventually this week, and then we trade a little bit lower. And that's fine. Just have to look for the opportunities that are presented towards us instead of chasing it. So as much as I would like it to go a little bit lower, if it just doesn't, I'm going to look for longs instead and not make it too difficult for myself. Yeah, that's the plan for me, at least. And when it's in this gap, and I hope it's going to be either overnight or tomorrow, so we could put in a high of the week on Tuesday, preferably during the New York session on the New York Stock Exchange Open, or the futures. Doesn't really matter that much, but at least that New York is going to make the high inside this gap. That hopefully will be a swing high, so that's an indication for me at least that we can expect a little reversal. And if it doesn't, and just shoot straight up, since that's also the possibility, then I'm going to be looking for these targets a little bit higher, going into this void of sell side liquidity and rebalance it. But for now, I'm just focused on this gap over here. This little gap. So that's the main, or at least my first target. And we can discuss a little bit more about the higher time frames. Just by looking at it, if you go on a daily chart or better a weekly chart, price is still, of price action, I must say, is still inside this weekly fair value gap. So it's a little bit slow at the moment, rebalancing this weekly price action candle. Then we still have a order block over here, which it may go towards still, but as long as it's inside its gap and doesn't close above it on weekly candles, for example, I'm also expecting a little retrace in the end. Since we still have this weekly / daily wickless candle, and that's just ugly. So I want to take this out eventually, but by the looks of it, we got a liquidity grab, we got a run up, we got our market structure break, we got our breach of fair value gap, since it's closed above it, we got a retrace from this volume gap, and we got the pretty much equilibrium of this block, and then pump further up. So locally speaking, on the 1 hour, it's bullish, and I'm expecting this weekly imbalance to be filled eventually. And that's around 62% of this gap almost. So that's nice. That's low, yeah. I mean, it would be something if we just take out these highs, tap this, fill the weekly imbalance, then roll over. If this move is not over yet, we can have some tree drives pattern filling this weekly imbalance, taking out buy side liquidity, filling this unfilled or unbalanced part of this 4 hour gap partially. And if this is going to be a three drives, similar to a three drives, then I'm expecting the rollover to happen as well. If trade on harmonic, could have a very extended cipher. So this is pretty much what I'm looking for this week. With the advanced GDP coming up. That's going to be on Thursday. So that's why I would like to have the weekly high on Tuesday, since the symmetry and time is very nice for this. If you go to Thursday, till here, then we have Friday. Yeah, I would like this for Tuesday. Tuesday I'll have the week, giving that three drives, reversal, going for this low. If we get a reversal at all. And then a little breathing of this run up, since this has been very volatile run up. I was expecting CPI to go a little bit lower still, but it just insta reversed and pumped back up. Some power of 3 type move, got a little accumulation, CPI manipulation, and reverse back up. And from there on out, it just bullish market structure. Continuous bullish market structure. But yeah, this will be my plan for this week at least. Looking for something like this. If not, and that's and we, let's say for example, we take out this high, we go inside this gap, and we don't have an indication of a reversal, but rather a reaccumulation and not a failed auction type of move, but we got a little run back down, then a run up, taking local lows, market structure shift, maintaining bullish, then I'm just going to long further. And then I'm going to target at least this high and these highs to go inside this gap. That's my bullish case for this week, should that happen. And that mainly depends on what happens if we take the high and go inside this gap, pretty much. If I see a swing high, for example, like we saw on, here on the daily, since we got this gap from May, we went inside it, we formed the swing high, and then we just plummet down 18%. So for downside, I prefer to see that swing high as well inside that gap. And we also have a little daily gap still. Not by much, but I'm not really counting this daily gap. More looking at the 4-hour, that's a little bit more accurate. But yeah, if you want to see some more downside, and this was just an expanded flat type of structure, running for A, B, C, and then go further down. I want to see that swing high form on the daily or on the 4-hour, at least a clean swing high. And when I see a clean swing high, that 3 drives is activated for me. We got that cipher, so we got that plan of a reversal, and then it's going to be interesting if this low will definitely be taken then, but if this low gets taken as well, then I'm going to target the actual low on 3,500 points. And the same goes for NASDAQ. But I'm already seeing that NASDAQ is lagging a bit. If we go and compare the two, you see that ES is much closer to this high than NASDAQ is. And sometimes when I see this, when one of the two is lagging, I get a lot of mixed signals. That was also the case last Friday when, if I remember correctly, that Nasdaq already took out the low and went inside that gap, and the ES didn't. And in the end, ES already, or ES also did in the end, and they both filled that gap pretty much. And then they synchronized back up, and now they are still lagging. I mean, it's pretty obvious that this is way further, a bit further away on Nasdaq than on the ES. So if, let's say ES is going to take this high, and we go inside this gap. So ES takes the high inside this gap, and Nasdaq fails to take this high, but it also has a gap over here. Normally, when I see something like this, I would say, okay, ES took the high, rebalanced, let's wait for Nasdaq. That doesn't have to be the case. In fact, this could be your SMT divergence. If, let's say, Nasdaq comes close to here, makes the high over here, you got your divergence of smart money, called smart money concept. And then you could say, okay, maybe the ES is leading and Nasdaq is going to follow. But you could also say, okay, ES already first buys some liquidity and it rebalanced. Well, while the Nasdaq failed to do so, that's a little bit weaker, don't you think? I mean, the ES already completed the structure. And in most cases, from recent weeks, what I've seen is that the ES is leading, but that Nasdaq is going to give me mixed signals. Thinking, okay, the move is not finished yet, or it's already finished, but it's just lagging. And that's what it's been doing all the time. They were pretty synchronized the way down. And the same happened over here when the ES was, for example, still here. Nasdaq was already here. So now it's reversed. Now it's ES leading, and then Nasdaq was leading. And that's something I'm monitoring myself, which one is going to lead me in the right direction. And I would say ES is the one leading the right direction for now. Until I see that obvious change again, where Nasdaq is going way higher and running much deeper, either high or low, then I'm going to switch my view on Nasdaq and take that as my leading indicator on deciding whether the move is already finished or it still has to follow up by, let's say, then the ES. So for now, I'm going to be focused on the ES mostly. And when that changes, I'm going to be focused more on Nasdaq. That's why I haven't really traded Nasdaq lately, or I'm just blindly longing or shorting when I see an entry fit on the ES, for example, since ES is leading anyway, and Nasdaq just follows, just less high or less low. But that's pretty much it on the ES for me. As we already went over this last Friday when I had that stream for the trading entry examples of what I was looking for. And then I already said that I was looking for this gap. So that's my main focus on the ES. If we go back to Bitcoin, let's see. So I want to look for something Interesting. This range, summer last year, before the impulse, was 62. Chart ETH if possible. I will do that, but I'm going to look at Bitcoin first. For now, I will do Ethereum in a couple minutes. I'm just interested in the time taken of all these ranges on the higher time frame. This range took about 63 days before the impulse down. And then we have this range. And then the question is this still part of the range? Like we used to thought here, but then it just nuked down. So this is clearly the impulse. Is this already the impulse? Or is it still part of the larger range? Since these two ranges have quite some similarities, but they also have a lot of differences. I mean, we got our run up here back in January. We got our nuke back down, then another run up. Here we only just have one run up. Then we rolled over. We had our little slow, well, we had our first nuke down like here. Then we had a little chop. And the difference here is that we went back ranging again. And here we clearly had that, if I recall correctly, it was a fat pivot. I don't know if it was CPR or FOMC, but it was a news event over here. And the day we pumped on the news event, and then we rolled over the next day and we just continued down. And yeah, the rest is history. But for now, I'm still leaning towards that this is still part of the range. I mean, this is not something I would consider the start of an impulse down. And I've seen Larry posting this from his Elliott Wave perspective. And that's why I'm also looking for this. That we have a 3-wave move, but the first one just finished, and we are still working on that second one before the third one. And then go lower. Or it might as well be this, but I would like it to have it like this. And that is a really big 4. Expanded flat type of structure. If this is indeed a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 is usually longer in time than 2. And 2 took 63 days. So far, this range has been going over 128 days. That's double the time of this second leg. And this may as well be goes just, or we don't have the distribution there. We might have it sooner. that it's going to take a long time, I think, to have the actual move finished of this range concept. And if we go to the previous bear market, and let's say 2018, this was not really clear at all, except that it was some sort of triangle price action. And then we got our move lower that started in 2019 rally. I'm not expecting the same to happen as well right now, but since this is clear in direction, for some reason this current range is just so damn ugly. It's so complex and slow, and we are at the lows pretty much. So all eyes on this low. And should we get a run up, take this high, then all eyes going to be on this high. But I've seen CP posting this as well, and yeah, by now I think this gap is indeed going to be partially filled at least. Maybe first fill it, then go lower. Maybe that would be cruel if we go lower. Take this low and this low, but still not the overall low. Then run higher. Take these highs. And then really roll over. And I think a lot of people would be waiting for these lows still, and they get left behind again for the I don't know how many time. But that could be cruel. Whereas Bybit already took this low. Scamwick, but Binance didn't. And Coinbase also took it. So maybe it's still waiting for Binance to take it. But yeah, let's see. I hope it moves soon. I really hope it moves soon. But let's go to Ethereum for the last part of the stream. Ethereum quite. I compare the relation between Bitcoin and Ethereum as I do with Nasdaq and ES, for example. Like Ethereum ran much deeper or much higher than Bitcoin did. But now it's lagging on Bitcoin. Since Bitcoin is already around here. And Ethereum is still around here. And if we go to the CME chart, CP has mentioned this before. Ethereum is basically ranging inside this old gap from July. And I think if I look at this based on the CME chart, it's just accumulating position for its next move inside this gap, just constantly rebalancing this gap. So when this is going to be broken, whatever direction, then I think the market will resume its direction in general on both Ethereum and Bitcoin. I think Ethereum is holding back Bitcoin as well, since it's just range bound. And this has been the case for 35 days now. But we still have a equal low on CME. So we still have this gap. Then we have a little volume gap. Very low volume gap. Then we have better gap. Take it like this. Sorry to interrupt, but do you have an expectation on the direction once ETH breaks that range? No, not really. We have to see which side it's going to break out of it first. I mean, it has an initial attempt over here back in September. Then it got back inside this range. We got another run down. We took out this low. We made an equal low from this daily candle and this daily candle's low. But we didn't fill this gap. And the same day, we made a bullish candle, swing failure, whatever you want to call it. And we went inside this gap again. Now we are at the higher part of this gap and it's rejecting again. And the same thing I hope to see on Bitcoin is we have our accumulation, then we have some sort of manipulation over here, and then maybe go for this gap fill. I think that will be very nice on Ethereum as well. And then I hope to see that Bitcoin is doing the same and fill this gap. And then go for the low on Binance, Bybit, Coinbase. Since CME doesn't have this 17k low, 17.6k low. See it. This low is not on the CME chart. And therefore you could say, okay, the low is already been taken for the 4th time now. You might go for the 5th. But now you have relative equal lows if you go on a higher time frame. It's basically just hovering around. And one basic thing we learn at the beginning of our trading journey, at least what we have been what's been taught to us, is when price is hovering above support, so to speak, it's probably going to break down. And you see this on the lower time frame, you see this on the higher time frame. But the higher time frame just takes a lot of time. If you go into the lower time frame, you see this every single day. But yeah, if we go a little bit more local to Ethereum, we still have this block. We got relative equal highs over here. We got our sell side liquidity purge already, but it didn't really change market structure. If we go back from this price action, we did do it over here, but I want to see some more follow through. But I think this is a reasonable target for Ethereum. And then, wait, the thing is, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so this block is still in discount, but we want to see it go to premium to have higher probability short trades. I mean, you don't know, but it can also just reject from here and then go down and go for this block. The one that I've been targeting for a couple weeks, but no luck so far. But it hit the 1-to-1 basically to the dollar. I think this is a very reasonable target locally, but I'd rather see it go to this block. So that smart money or the deep pockets inside this market still have a better chance to compound a short position or open a new short position. Maybe we see something like this. Mitigate orders, grab liquidity, then close inside it. So we got an OTE setup. Then run for this equilibrium target. If this is going to be a, yeah, okay, so, okay. Okay, so if this is going to be the case, we might see a very extended fifth move if this is going to towards the 1.236 at the equilibrium of this block. And by the looks of it, ES is going for these highs. Yeah. Okay, let's go approach these highs. Okay. Yeah, so Nasdaq already purchased this high by this impulse. Oh wait, this is the wrong high. It was this high. Yeah, so Nasdaq is lagging quite a lot. Like really a lot. It's almost lagging 250 points compared to the yes. That's pretty massive. But let's have an alarm over here. And then go back to to Ethereum. So I would like this Ethereum to maybe enter short positions over here. Stop loss over here. Since I don't want to have very wide stop loss, given that we have this gap over here and this block to be mitigated. Then run it a little bit lower, back down. To then go long. And go for this block. 23%. Almost 6 risk reward ratio. So yeah, that's I would like this on Ethereum. In the hopes that Bitcoin is going to do the same. Perhaps then not this. But Ethereum is leading as well, since Bitcoin did not take this high on the 14th of this month, and Ethereum did. So Ethereum already took this high, while Bitcoin didn't. And the ES is still not. Almost. So close. Just purge it. Okay. Would be something if it just creates equal highs and rolls over now. Since it did take this high from Asia. This is an Asia high. That would be something. Oh yeah, well. Yes, it's pretty much going to take this high. Tonight. Looking at volume. Most transacted volume is still down here. Obviously it's down here if it was along this way. But we also have quite some volume up here. Pretty much all sell volume. The short position probably already took profit, so but this could be nice. Then we have a little turnaround. Go back to the OTE values. And then it's lower. Yeah, I would like this. This high is going to be protected. This high pretty much as well. Remember that Jim Cramer said buy Ethereum around here, and then we just went lower, so that's always nice. And then we have a bit too stretched. I would like this for a swing plan on Ethereum. So we first mitigate these positions, or they go out at break even, they buy back their positions, we go lower. Wait for the next Jim Cramer signal. He gave a signal today. He really gave a signal today. And I posted it. Let me find it. Let's see. Jim Cramer explains why he is optimistic on market going into November. So Al, that's your signal. That would be nice. Going into November. What do we have in November? Non-farm employment changed. Okay, unemployment rates. FOMC. Nice. Okay, so we have FOMC. Unemployment. Nice. That's on the 2nd of November. That's over here. That would be so nice. We also have US midterm elections November 8th. That's right. That's good that you say that. Yeah, congressional elections. And then November 10th, we have CPI again. November is going to be a fun month, I think. Hopefully. So we have FOMC. Then the 8th is going to be elections. And then the 10th is CPI on Thursday. Hallelujah. Okay. That's nice. Making the high on FOMC, retrace to the elections, then the core CPI fuckery, then heading into the real trend, sharp 2, and then going for the 5th. Yeah, I would like this swing plan. Very nice. Okay, I'll post this one as well. Swing plans. ETH. Okay. Basically Bitcoin the same thing. Even though I'm not really trading it, but I'm tracking it. Going for this gap. Has ES already still not taken the high? God damn it. Swing high forming. Okay, interesting. Interesting. What if it's indeed going to take Asia high and then just reverse and says fuck you all? Plan B. Or not. Would be like May 4th. Yep. Well, back in May or April, the end of April, start of May, we had this immediate gap. We don't really have now. Still a little bit of price action between these highs. But yeah, there is a gap here that might act as a breakaway gap. It's not much. I mean, the weekly is a little bit cleaner. And then the 4 hour, of course. But he is going to take this high. Most likely. 9 p.m. So it's 3 o'clock. Interesting. So we got our price manipulation window on Monday. This is just trend continuation. So initially the AM session rebalanced some stuff, took some liquidity, ran it back up, and then lunch happened, retracement in lunch, bullish resume in PM session. So expecting higher. Too bad it didn't really go for London though. Okay, so the high is taken on ES. Nice, nice alarm, not ringing. Okay. Buy side perched. Not by much, but would be better if it takes this high as well. But very nice. Okay. So sell side perched, buy side perched. That's the key thing to remember. But this was a much deeper perch, but that was CPI release. And this is back to normal price action for now. Let's see. Then I'm going to be wrapping it up here. I think I've outlined pretty much what I want to see and what I'm focusing on. So that 4 hour gap on the ES is what I'm going to watch. Then monitoring what DXY is going to do, if it's going for this little gap or back to this gap. And then Ethereum, hoping to see my swing plans going unfold. And I'm not long right now on Ethereum, but I'm just tracking what it's going to do. I might consider some swing trades. But yeah, it really has to move. If it's not going to move, I'm not going to be bothered. Since then, I just want to have my focus on the ES and Nasdaq. And then we have oil still. Yeah, oil is pretty much going bearish. Took the low, took the high, went back inside this gap, went back down. And I'm still waiting on oil to fill this gap. Pretty much what I'm waiting for in oil. Now we have a local low, so we have sell sides. We have the gap. I would like for oil to come down for this gap fill at least. Since that would also be the OTE from this impulse up. Since we do have to remember we got liquidity grab and we got market structure break locally. So if we are bullish on oil, I have to see what it's gonna do on this gap. But I'm targeting this gap on oil, and that's still approximately 5% down. Back into the 80s. So ES has perched the high, and we got timing with us in this 3 o'clock to 4 p.m. So we might see a little reversal now. Manipulating it higher, purging buy side, reversing it back down. It would be perfect. Depending how volatile this last couple of hours is going to be. But this has been a very clean buy template, daily template. In the end, still a bullish AM session, retrace lunch, continuation PM session. So the PM trend is just following up on what the AM session has left just before lunch. Lunch starts at 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. And then 1:30 is when the algorithm is going to start again and during the PM session, and it's just been going up steadily. But yeah, too bad it didn't go for London low, to be fair. I was really waiting for London low to be taken out and then see further, but we don't always get what we want, and we have to accept that. Okay, then I'm going to wrap it up here, guys. I'm go back trading myself last couple hours, and then see what this week brings and where we are going upon next week, and then going again for the next as usual market update. And I hope to see some real movement on crypto, so we can have a better view on what it's probably going to do. As of right now, it's just doing nothing, ranging, nothing changed, except from some target hits, internally, but okay. And then I hope to see high of the week on Tuesday, so tomorrow. If not, and we go for a retrace during Tuesday and Wednesday, then I'm going to switch views and go for a low of the week on Tuesday, pushing higher on Friday. Those are my two key things for this week on the ES. So let's see. Okay, I'm gonna end stream right here then. Bye, thank you for recording again, and see you guys next week. And if you have questions, feel free to ask in chat. I'll still be around. If you want some help with something, I will be around. Otherwise, see you next week in that stream. Okay, take care and bye-bye.